Now, one thing first, this is not a lecture. This is a conversation. So anytime you have a question or comment, bring it up, because I'm not going to lecture you, okay? All right, the purpose of this is I have a very small railroad, essentially, and it's how you can create a realistic scene in a small space. And there's several prerequisites to that. One is you got to have eyes that are looking, and use one of those to get some ideas. I use my phone. It doesn't have to be as fancy as that machine, but that's always a good idea. Now, what I want to start with is these are two views of my railroad. This is the downtown area. Now, in the hill country, probably all over Texas, there are many, many towns that this is kind of the same configuration that you'll see. It doesn't matter if it's in the hill country or whatever it is. And that the main area is one block square, darn near, okay? So this is downtown Mystic. There is no such town in Texas as Mystic, period. This is named after a girl, and you can look at it from both sides. And that made sense for him because in his store, people looking in from the sidewalk could see the railroad, and then people inside could see it. Most railroads that you see, model railroads, are more like the, the Frisbee layout. And he does have a backdrops are what keep your eye going. So you really, in my opinion, need such as that. No, let's see. Now, what I want to talk about is how you can get a realistic scene like this on a small railroad working. And that's what this whole thing is about. All right. As I was saying, backdrops are essential. This is a view of the little town called Val Verde. There's no Val Verde, Texas either. I made very darn sure that there really weren't. There's a Val Verde County, but there's no Val Verde town. So this is a view of the fuel depot, if you will, in Val Verde. And notice it's framed by the backdrop. Very simple-minded backdrop. I did it. And so you know it's pretty simple-minded. But what it does is it gives context to it. If it was just blank behind there, you wouldn't see it. But here, you look at it, your eye sees that it's real, that it's realer than it would be. Only it's very straightforward to do. Mine is modular. So you can see these modules you see here, they're X wide, X high. But always we have a hardened backdrop. And mine is like 18 inches tall, okay? It extends 6 inches above it and maybe an inch below. And the backdrop itself, now this is all made out of like masonite, hardboard, whatever you want to call it. Now, to paint it, I mounted the backdrop. It's 1 foot tall, and it's the raw side out. In other words, it's not the finished side, it's the raw side. It works better for when you're trying to just paint something on it because it doesn't like glow, if you will. It's flat. So that would be my way of saying how to go about it. Mine is pretty straightforward. It's made up to module 1x, and it has a MDF substrate and then 1/2 inch foam. That is the top of the railroad, okay? As you can see when I was doing this one, these are 2 modules, and I did them together so that the backdrops wouldn't look like this. So when I was painting the backdrops, I'd line them up and keep them going. That way you can see, here's the scene. This is one, but that's the other. So, and they're pretty straightforward. What I did is my wife's a very good painter, I'm a lot. But she taught me a little things that you could do with a sponge. So I took a little sponge on to put the little trees and stuff in the front. And they're not obtrusive, but it gives you a little context in the way you've done it. Now the way you paint them is the top part, this is like 1 foot, okay? I take blue paint on a little roller along the top, and then below, before you do any of this, white paint on the bottom. Then you begin to blend them in the middle, and then you'll put a few streaks. I didn't plant any clouds. If you see, it's just like streaks. But this is what the hill country looks like on most days. unless you have a big thunderhead, but I mean, that's the deal. I also took some photographs when I was up there of what the mountains looked like. And so I was able to say, okay, the front part here is the closer ones. And then every now and then you'll see a little further one away. So I painted those kind of a darker brown color. And these kind of a greenish, because even I did not put any trees or whatever on it. It's just because I didn't, and I know people that are really, really good at it, and they look neat. But this, all I needed was just something that's in context. So that's the point of how to go about that, all right? Like I said, if you have questions. Okay. So now we get into some real places.
Gene, what kind of paint do you use? Do you do acrylic or do you do oils or?
No, that one I used latex
Okay.
from Lowe's or Home Depot, and I went in there and they had their paint chart, and I said, okay, that's a cool one, sky blue. White, that'll work. And so I don't have any idea what it is, and then I got me a little can of that color. And I have a roller, you know, so.
Pardon me, but what kind of brake cars are behind the engine?
That is a 50-foot flat, and it's got a load on it that are generators. They're gonna go to LCRA, and that is a
hopper car?
Yeah.
Thank you.
He's going over here to pick up some aggregate to take back. And this guy's gonna be delivered to the team track for the Lower Colorado River Authority. So, the way I did it is, I took the same blue foam that I could buy at Home Depot or Lowe's, I think, I don't matter where I got it. And then you sort of cut it apart, snap it, glue it with you better use a foam safe glue or you'll know pretty quickly why it didn't work. So, then you just sort of glue them together. And then, then you can, you can either begin to sand them, but what I did is I used a product called Sculptamold. It's like plaster, but it's easier to deal with and it doesn't dry as brittle. And one thing I did do is I mixed kind of a rock-colored latex paint with it. As I was, so that way if you scratch it, you don't have a big white streak in there. You have, it's colored all the way through it. So in this big cut here, that's the way it's done. Now, so here I was able to distress it where it looks like hill country rock. Now, one thing we do in the hill country is you have what's called benched cuts. And then this is like 20 feet up, then you bench it back. Otherwise, big rocks start falling and you don't want to fall it on your head. So you bench it back. If you've driven I-10 out past San Antonio to St. Junction, you'll see a lot of them. The highway department did it. So that's why this is benched. Now the foliage, the cheapest foliage in the world is I make them, they're called puff balls. And you use pillow making material.
Oh, fiberglass.
Yeah, you wad it up, you roll it in some glue, then you dip it in brown foam. And they, believe it or not, you stick them on top of the hills, and you put a few what I call hero trees that have trunks with them, and I guarantee your eye sees just exactly what it looks like, because that's what your eye sees. You don't pick up the trunks because they're not there. I mean, they're hidden. Every now and then you'll see one. So, it's 1,000 times cheaper. These trees may cost you $5 a piece. And so you want to be wary of using it. In any case, so that is a kind of a signature scene. The reason it was there is it's kind of hiding these turnouts and such in the back of the railroad. And it also, it gives you a pretty good view of what it could look like as you're going through a cut. Okay. As I was saying, I grew up alongside the Guadalupe River. So these are some scenes. Now, the way most towns on a river are done is they would be generated on one side of the river, normally the quote high bank, and that's where the town would be. Now, they didn't even develop across the river until you had nice bridges. You didn't even want to mess with it. You'd take a canoe over there maybe or something like that. So that's why only one side was developed early, and then the far side was developed later. So, and the same thing happened in Kerrville. When I was growing up there, we did have a big bridge across there, but nobody was really doing anything on the far side of the river. Now, the town's on both sides, but for many, many years, it was only one side. Comfort, places like that, they're still like one side of the river. But, so, what I did, as I was telling you, I had a dam here. I used the product, I gotta read it, called Shaper Sheets. I'd never tried those before, but they're aluminum foil, thick foil, with like plaster, and then you crunch them up, wet them down, and then they stay. And you can stack them, okay? And then I put some more sculpt mold over it to cover it, but they're pretty freestanding, but they're another alternative. And this is below the grade. So you can see that's how this thing works. Now, this is before scenery, and this is after. And then the scenery is trees and bushes, rock, and those are made from rubber molds. Then you just put the plaster in it. When it dries, then you just stick them to it. And it works pretty slick. And the water here is it's like an acrylic. It's I used one called Woodland Sands Realistic Water, and you pour it into like 1/8 inch layers. So the first thing you do is you paint it black with a little blue in it, deep blue, but you paint it black, and on the edges you begin to fade in what the bank would look like, okay? You do all that first, then you pour the water, okay? So this was in like 2 courses. After the second course is when I put in lily pads and canoes and stuff along the side. But the first course, you have to let them sit for a day or so, then you pour another course. And that course is the one that runs over the dam. Now below the dam, I use an acrylic, acrylic varnish. I have my notes, but I couldn't remember. Acrylic, and then I poured more of this water over the top of it for the below the dam. And it looks pretty slick. You can see, and I put fishermen and a bunch of trees and rocks and stuff. And so this, and it gives you an idea of kind of like ripples
So
as it goes.
how did you get that ripple effect? Did you just take a white paintbrush and?
Yeah, you push it, and then and let it set up, and then I pour the realistic water down it, and it runs down it like it's a creek or like a river. And so it'll get in there, and then all the rocks you do in there first, all of the bed of it. And I didn't put any fish in it, like the guys did. I should have. And what I'm driving at is this shows some definition and content of what happened on a very small railroad. And as you can see the very, very essential part of any of these is the backdrop, if you can. Now, we have a railroad out here that's perfectly good without a backdrop, and that's the one. And you can look at it from both sides, and that made sense for him because in his store, people looking in from the sidewalk could see the railroad, and then people inside could see it. Most railroads that you see, model railroads, are more like the, okay, in order to get across there, you gotta have bridges. Now, I'm a fan of a manufacturer called Camel. These bridges, believe it or not, that truss bridge is made out of wood. And what you do is you use something you might not have heard of, it's called sanding sealer. And the first thing you do is you put it all over everything, and that makes it look, it takes all the pores, all the grain out, and it looks like it could be metal. So all of these are done the same way, the truss and the deck girder. And so one little interesting quick thing on this, I'll see if I can do it as quick as possible. What happened is, when I was a kid, we lived in Kermit. One of our ancestral grandparents lived near Belton along the Lampasas River, okay? Well, to get to their house, their farm or ranch, we went to Fredericksburg, to Llano, to Burnett, etc., okay? Between Llano and Burnett, along the Llano River, the Southern Pacific had a branch that went to Llano. Well, as you're driving along, you see these little truss bridges for all the little creeks that run into the Llano. And when I was a kid, I was impressed that, man, those are neat. I want something like that. But I was already in model railroading to some degree. And so when I found out that this company called Campbell, their prototype for that bridge is a Southern Pacific prototype. And I said, ha-ha, so I'm safe. This was based on a bridge that was in Southern California, but it was a Southern Pacific prototype. So solved, that is the prototype of SP right there, I guarantee you. So that was what they used. The deck girder, and these are all made out of wood, no joke. But you treat it correctly and you'll think that it's not. The ties are from Walthers with the center guardrail section. Now this guy is just a trestle bridge, and each piece of wood is, you just got to stain them. They come like as dowels, you stain them. And I used Indian ink and alcohol, and just let them soak around in there, and then that's the stain. Then you glue them all together, little crackles up. Now the highway bridge is from Pike stuff. I don't know if you've ever heard of Pike stuff. And if you'll notice, there's a pipe. That happened all the time in hill country, probably anywhere, because it's cheaper than trying to build an individual set of truss across the creek when you can just attach them to the bridge. It's already there. So I guarantee you, all these little towns, that's the way they would do it if they could. So that represents a water pipe taking water across to the residential area. Anyway, that's and it's pretty close to what they would really do in the world. Okay. In the hill country, probably most all of Texas up in that part of the world, there was, in the 70s when I'm doing this, or even earlier, there were very, very few concrete roads. Most of them were like macadam or tar and gravel type roads, they call them. And I found there's a manufacturer that is called Strathmore Textured Watercolor Paper. And I was I guess, I don't know if it was in Hobby Lobby or one, and I saw this stuff, and it has a texture to it. And I said, this looks just like the roads. So I bought it. I have, if anybody needs that, I have a lifetime supply.
I'll take some.
Yeah, okay, because it comes in a book, and you tear it off and use it. If you need it, you got it. Any case, so this is all of them are down that way. Oh, there's Mr. Pizza. And then out in the country, I used N-scale ballast as like your gravel along the side of the road. This is HO scale. Yeah. And in here, I built all those are scribed by hand of these curb and gutter sections. So it works pretty good. So I would, if you're going to do that part, any kind of rural part of Texas prior to now, you don't want to use concrete because they're very, very little there. Oh, these manhole covers and stuff come from a manufacturer called Blair Line. They do N-scale as well. Okay. So you can use them, and then you can see they're here, wherever they're, anything like that's industrial, if you will, or what it would show. All right.
And so, Gene.
Yeah.
So I know we were talking about it when me and Sebastian came and saw your layout, but how did you do the road signs?
The what now?
The road signs.
Oh, I'll tell you. Now this like this one, I'll have a better view. Okay, what I do is you got to know that the way the text works. 1/32 inch is whatever it's called. And then, so if you're talking about 8 point, it's a point. It's 1/72 of an inch. And so you need to know what the text was that you're trying to emulate. If it's DOT stuff, it may be 8 or 10 inches. It is a text like Arial or some name. Then what you do is you scale it down and say, if I want 8-inch text with HO, then I want 4-point letters and they're this tall. Okay, so that's the way you and then what you do is you put it on and then you make you print that page exactly at the scale. In other words, you don't raise or lower it. And then that will be your lettering. Then you cut that out, cut out your sign, and you put double-sided tape on it. Yeah. Then you mount it to a piece of whatever, styrene, and then you paint the back of it. It's really pretty slick. I have a paper on that I can send to you if you want to know how to do it. Yeah, it works. And once you get into it, it doesn't take too long. It's not as complicated as you think. But one thing I would recommend, I have a presentation on making signs, is if you want to do how the DOTs do it, there's a website you can go to and you can get their whole book on signs or everything about highways. All right, now I'm going to talk about the stations and some of the things around the deal. This is the passenger station in Mystic on the bottom here, okay? I built that guy probably in the 1970s. And what I'm saying is I've used it on several individual railroads that I've had. So here I modified it slightly. I shortened it up and I built this parking lot and put some guardrails along the side and mounted it such that this is a primary passenger station, if you will. And then I have a vertical view, and here's some of the folks. And this is in case they have 2 trains at once. Odds are it's not going to happen in Burwell area or the Hill Country. But these are just some various photographs of it. Now the signs here, I use the same technique. And then laminate it, and it works pretty neat. And then you can make it any there's all kinds of fonts in Word, and also in whatever Apple world is. So it's pretty straightforward to do. But I built that a long, long time ago, and it's a Atlas kit, I think. Atlas, yeah. All right. All right, this, I may be the first or the second thing I ever made that was from a kit. And what I mean by kit, this is not like what they call a shape. This is like a shape the box. It's not a shape the box. All of that, you end up having to cut all of the things out and all the framing, everything you do. But it makes a beautiful model. This is wood. This is by this company called Campbell again. And I built that probably in the 1970s, 75, something like that. And it is the freight station, if you will, for Mystic. Now, some little towns would have them if they were big enough. They would have a separate freight station. Some would have a combination station. So this one was big enough it actually had a freight station. And you've seen the photograph of it. In any case, so what I'm saying, I was able to weather it pretty good, and I built a little interior that had like a counter and maybe a stove or something. So you can see that flue. And then put all the people, the Coke machine, you can buy all these little details, and they really make a difference, so you can put details in. And now the gravel parking lot is in-scale ballast, looks like pea gravel. So this is the freight station, and it is an LCL station in these days, less than carload. So that what if that freight cars are bringing in here are just pieces of things. It's not a sort of an individual person rather than a business. This is the Val Verde Railroad Station. And it was built from a person. A little town like Val Verde wasn't big enough station, so they had what they call a combination station. This one was built from a fine scale miniatures kit. This guy is probably one of the best craftsmen I've ever seen. His kits were marvelous. They're very, very complete, but you still got to build them. I mean, it isn't like everything is still parts. However, he may have, and the doors, instead of cutting them out, he may have stamped them and said, okay, this is where the door is. I actually super detailed it. I put nails where those two studs. And I did modify it slightly for where it fits. It usually originally have one post like a Y, and I said that doesn't work good because I need to be able to make it removable. And likewise, I had to fit it so the platform was changed. And then this is where the team crack is. See, so that is the universal industry. But this is a really neat kit. I love it. And I would recommend if you're going to be into the modeling, but this will take you weeks to build. It's not like taking a plastic kit. All right, in Kerrville, I'm expanding it right now, but these top two things, they're from the 1960s, no joke. And I kind of over-weathered them back in the day. As you can see, they're a little bit heavily weathered. But that's the sand house, and that's the fuel tank. And so those I've had forever. And I had them on several different railroads. Okay, but when I put them in here, then the gravel and stuff, it's just mixed kind of gravel. On this side is like the station platform, the platform for working on locomotives. And this is from Plastruck, and then the bottom is just styrene that I scribed, as a concrete. There are several other things. I call them railroad support structures. This one, right there at the top, this is Val Verde, and this is just like a speeder. And I didn't have a model speeder, so I had the door closed. Speeders inside. Don't worry.
So it was kind of like a handcart station. You know, one of those handcart stations.
Yeah, but this would be one that they rode, like we have out there. A speeder, exactly like the one that we have. Yeah. So that's a speeder's shed. And I detailed it because I was with this other one, so I had to put nail holes and all kinds of stuff so it wouldn't stand out as a funky looking thing. So, and then this is down at this tower would be similar to what Tower 17 does, except it was a signal tower versus a crossing tower. But in other words, they still were signaling to trains, hey, look, you slow down there and keep on going. And this I had many, many years, but I didn't, this is not a steam era, so all I did was put the bottom in and kind of weathered it so where the what do you call it, the part that holds the water would have been, and then, detailed it up a little bit.
Drainage pipe? That's what it's called, right? The drainage pipe?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the water main coming in. And this is the Yardmaster's Tower in Kerrville. So these things I've built over the years and just used them on the railroad.
So Gene, you talked about using them on different layouts. Have you changed up your layout several times? Or?
I had one when I lived in suburban Washington. I had a whole basement worth.
Oh, wow.
Well, when I moved, and it was a rent house. That's the stupidest thing you can do. And so I tore up what I could save and moved it. I was thinking about moving back to Austin, but Turner County Bridge said, oh, no, can you come to Houston temporarily? This was 1975. Temporarily, I'm still in the area. Still here in the area. So I brought it in, and we were in a rent house here. I said, I'm not going to do this again. So first time I bought a house, and I used parts of it and had a railroad there. And then we sold that and bought another house. And so I took what I could, I said, okay, how am I gonna get this thing to fit? And I fit it in there, and that's what I was keep building some of the buildings. Then she and I went our separate ways. She was a travel agent, and I was an engineer. We see one another once a month, because she was on the road, I was on the road, so we kind of just drifted apart. It wasn't anything mean, it just, hey, what's the heck? And then Rita and I bought a house, and that's where and I was gonna put I had a double decker with a helix. I don't know if you know what a helix is,
Yeah.
when you go from one layout to the other with two small grades. And that would never, and the cat, Sebastian knows about cats.
Oh, yeah.
Up on the top deck, ding, ding, knocking. I was thinking, this is killing me. And so I just put everything in storage. This was in the late 80s, early 90s. I said, I'm just not gonna do any more until I'm retired. 2014, I retired, and I looked at it and I said, I'm not gonna build something as mean as that. So that's when I built, this was the guy here. And it's,
Still mean.
and it worked. So I could super detail it.
Yeah.
The other one you could, but I used a lot of the buildings that I built for other railroads. So, now none of these were on, these buildings. This one, okay, I'm gonna go back to where I was. Downtown, these buildings are all from William K. Walters. And they're very, very typical of what any town and any place in the country would look like, kind of downtown. You had a jewelry store, a little restaurant, and then a hardware store, a bar named Eugene's Bar. I know that. And then a pharmacy, okay? And on the side of it, there was offices, and in the back of it, were like apartments. So it's a really cool cabin. And they make them in N-scale. This building I'd had since the 1970s. And so I made a bank out of it. I don't know who, Helljet or somebody made those. And this is the Mystic Pizza, another one, and that's a hardware store. So this is the downtown deal. And all of the other stuff is what it would look like as it was. And this is another street where you just see the sides of it. But the downtown worked out pretty well. It's pretty easy to do. Oh, as I was telling you, the roof, if you're talking about this on a model railroad, rooftop details are critical because people are looking down on your railroad. And if you don't have that, they're going to hit it. So you got to really study what the rooftop ought to look like and do it. So. Okay, across the river, dun, dun, dun. Now, for you younger folk, believe it or not, the Work Progress Administration in the 1930s was putting people to work during the Depression, the WPA. One of their missions, they were building parks. They were building roads. And so a lot of these little towns got people, the WPA, to build them like a municipal park. So did Mystic. They got the WPA to build them a park. It actually, the park came from Woodland Scenics. And I've had it about, I don't know, 30, 40 years, but I finally built it. And it's on the backside against the hill, where the residential area is. Well, but this is a cool little kit. And you can get it at N-scale, boys, if you would like. And all of the parts come with it. So this is a metal casting. And so the theory is that the town of Mystic whipped those Mexicans at the Battle of the Alamo, and they stole their cannon and took it. It's probably a legend, but, and then all the other stuff. And now I built this, because that's from one section to the other section. But this is pretty cool. I mean, all this stuff you get is parts of it. So if you're interested in having a park, I would recommend doing that.
Those tire swings actually swing?
Hmm?
Do those tire swings actually swing?
Yes, they're made out of metal.
Fish, oh, really?
Yeah, and so you can ding and it'll. Yeah, and Rita, I said, like, I need some rope. And so she gave me a couple of pieces of thread that was the right color so that I could make a rope swing. So those are my wife's contribution. And next door, and this is across the river, is the residential area. I built this building in the 1970s, and it's another Campbell kit. And I had a full interior, I mean, lighted, the whole thing, but where it is, it wouldn't make any difference. You couldn't see whether it was, so it's fully equipped right there. And the little fence and all the other stuff around it. And then this one is called Grandma's house. I had the kit since the 70s again. But it is one of the most complicated things I've ever made because of the roof. I mean, you know, trying to get all that stuff together. It took me a while to get that working, but it works because it's really a beautiful kit. I mean, these are not what they call shake the box kits. You gotta really put them together. So if you're getting those for your N-scale boys, you're gonna have to say, okay, I'm gonna count on doing this for a little while. Lumberyard. Every little town has a lumberyard. This one came from a company that you couldn't find one of these, but new on a heartbeat, because I think they went out of business in the late 70s. But it's, okay, it is cardstock and sticks is all you get, and plans. So you really got to cut everything out. But it makes a beautiful kit. If you look at the top one over there, the little dowels, you paint them as paint cans. I mean, it's all you get are and you do get some acetate for your windows, but that's about all that you get. So this is the lumber yard. It's, I mean, office. This is where they stored it, and this is a sawing shed. Okay, the sawing shed is pretty neat. All of this you get. So you can emulate them sawing it, you know, with, and now this is from Walther's, excuse me, and all of the stuff in it is real scrap. As I was building a kit, I throw them in there, so this is real scrap stuff.
And don't you, isn't all your wood stuff in the lumberyard cardboard pieces, right?
Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, you see this, corrugated? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then it gets all kinds of, it's really pretty neat because you get all kinds of loads in here, any kind of a, you know, this is just palletized, you know, and now the substrate of that is plexiglass, and then on the top of it is plastic to make the curb and gutter parts of it. So it's a two-course deal. But it works out pretty nice because you can paint one end and paint the other. So if you get a chance, you probably will do those. Okay, across into Valverde is the galley aggregates. And what they do is there's two, I got the idea from a model railroader article years and years ago. What they do is they had two parts to it. There's a big quarry over here across behind the mountain. And then down here is the creek. So some of the materials comes by truck from the creek. The other ones come by conveyor into here, and then they load the freight cars and take it out. So it's a two-part deal. It's a very nice kit, very easy to deal with, and it makes a really good industry that you really need. And you can get those in N-scale too, guys. And this is the other one, we've seen photos of it. It's the multi-service industry that you have the tanks where you can export oil. And people say, Gene, there's no oil. You know, I say, I know, but it is on my railroad. And the reason I say this is because I built these tanks. I built those in 1970. And from a piece of tape reel, and then wrapped them up and said, I'm going to put those on the damn railroad. Anyway, and then these are like LPG vehicle gases, propane, whatever, and then it gets fuel. It's in, you know, it's a Texaco area, so it comes in at Texaco. So that came. I've had this thing many years, and I scratch built this little office with my had some extra parts. All right, moving on. This is maybe the busiest, yeah, you gotta, this may be the busiest business on the railroad because it's taking, it's probably a lot of times, 2 freight cars or refrigerator cars at a time. Beautiful produce all over the country, from Great Hill Country. And I built that one many years ago too, but I was able to use it here. And it's a Campbell kit, but it's pretty neat. You can see some of the detailing. This area, I don't know, I just put that together and say, okay, they're selling to the local people here, and then they're selling to the grocery stores or whatever, and then this guy's moving in here selling his produce to them. Very busy. All right, this one is named after a good friend of mine that I worked for many years ago, that he and I were associates in other businesses, and his name was Larry Walker. This is what they call scratch built. In other words, I was using wood, crescent board, little plastic, like these, you just stack the plastic up, or the styrene, and then it makes a stairwell. These are like pieces of, believe it or not, like pins or some kind of, just whatever you could do to make the guardrail. So this was 100% scratch built. You can see the interior. It doesn't have much of an interior because it didn't need much of an interior. That's what it looks like from the truck side, and this is what it looked like from the track side. Now, this one would have been built in the 1930s or 40s when 40-foot boxcars were the road. 2 40-footers fit perfectly there. Nowadays, if you got 50s, you've got trouble. You're gonna have to put one here, and then to unload this, you gotta move this guy here. So it's kind of a tricky deal, but hey, that's the way it works. So and this is one of the busiest in the business because it's a transfer service. People have a hardware store, they get their stuff here and then truck it over to where they're gonna go. So it is a busy business.
The truck kind of looks like Optimus Prime. The truck kind of looks like Optimus Prime, the red truck.
Which one?
The red one.
This one?
Transformers.
Oh, he's on the street over here.
Yeah.
And I don't even know where this is Southern Pacific, and that one is somebody else. I have had those probably since the 70s as well. I guess I'll update them one of these days. All right, this one is named after a good friend of mine named Juan Clipper Piker. He and I were the ones that built the one in the basement many years ago. So I named this after him. It's a farm and ranch supply. All the towns up there would have one. That building I built, scratch built, again, I drew the plans and made my own stuff. I built that back in the 70s. And then this I built recently. I didn't have enough room for the whole thing. So I said, I've seen a deal in one of the railroad magazines where you could, and they show the interior. So this is right on the edge of my railroad. And so I said, okay, sliced it in half. And then you can see you put all the stuff in it. And it really looks pretty cool in that respect, because you're seeing what's going on inside the building. Okay, son is Tim. He had a fence business, right? And when I was doing this, he said, hey, you got to put a fence business in here. I said, oh, okay. And so this is Tim's Fences as it would have been in 1977, 78. And the sign is one of his business cards. I laminated it together. So that's the sign on the back. And so that I scratch built again from parts that I had. The fence material, I think we found somewhere, that you could get it, the wood and the metal. And so we had to have the fence business there, for sure. And I think this is a Wolfridge kit. But it's pretty well detailed. And again, this is scrap, real scrap.
And scrap is in scrap metal or scraps of wood?
As I was building things, I would throw them in those, as I was tapering things off, and I'd throw all the scraps, whatever it was inside there. Oh, look, see all that? that's, don't tell her where it came from, but that's a building from scratch. I went to school with a young lady named Adamak. Her dad had a saddle shop in Kerrville, so I had to have that built. So in this case, I had it in Mystic, not in Kerrville, but his name was Charles Adamak, and he really did have one. So this is scratch built as well, using a material that's like brick. You could buy in sheets, and then you got to make sure you match it up well, so you have an end with a side. So the length is situated about that. So, and it makes a pretty good little model. So and then the top is just tar and gravel roof. This right there, that is from Blair Line, and it's just an air conditioner. Okay, this I scratch built. This is what I was telling you about. This is exactly the way they would have worked. Fredericksburg, King, Kerrville, Comfort. And then this is a sewer line from Blair Lines. But it worked out pretty neat. All right, a quick story of this. I won't bore you anymore. Okay, if you look at the front of there's on the corner, that pharmacy is called Jackson's Pharmacy. Jackson is my great-grandson, right? Kennedy is my great-granddaughter. I had that built before, and so she's looking at the railroad. She said, hey, Granddad, how come Jackson has a building on there and I don't? I go, oh, crap. And because I was just about done. And so I had this little piece of land, a little tiny area I was going to build a park. And I said, okay. So I looked in the Walters catalog everywhere. I finally found a kit from Germany, from Bush. And so it was small enough that I could put it in there. However, the instructions were in German.
Oh, no.
I don't speak very fluent German. So me and the internet were working that out to kind of get the idea. It was one of the most complicated little kits I've ever made in my life because the buds are separate from the stalks, are separate from everything. And you got to assemble all of these. And so I made it Kennedy's Corner Flower Shop, and it's right there. So she has her railroad park too. And it really did make a cool little deal. Okie dokie. We're getting close. The Texaco's, every town has a gas station, there's no doubt about it. Now this one, okay, early on, before Reed and I got married, my buddy's dad had a Conoco station, a Gulf station, so I wasn't sure if I was going to make him a Gulf station or a Conoco station. When Reed and I got married, her dad worked for Texaco. So it's now a Texaco station, all right? So I looked at some stuff back from the 1970s, which is where it's set. And that bottom left photograph is kind of a typical small town gas station. And so what I was able to do is get the idea of what the colors would be and how they decorated it and such. And the hardest thing to find was dang stars. I was looking everywhere. I finally found them at, I think at Michael's, at the teacher's place. You know, where they had the gold stars or the little red stars. Finally got them, and then I was able to paint it up and put it there, okay? The gas prices are correct for 1978 or something like that. No, that's right, because they didn't have, they were just starting with the unleaded. So Texaco Fire Chief and whatever those, Sky Chief and Fire Chief, those were the gasolines that were sold here. And one of them, believe it or not, I looked it up, was $47.09, $47.09, and the premium was $63.09. Yep, guarantee you can look it up. I did have a diesel pump and an unleaded pump. Okay, they just didn't advertise that. They put them over here in the back. But this is the foundation here, like it's 2 pieces of styrene. All right. Also, little towns like Comfort had no real bus station. They used a gas station as a bus station. And my dad drove a bus for a living forever. So I had to have a bus station. So I put a bus there and said, okay, this is the bus station. And it's now a dual purpose deal. Okay, move along. all little towns had utilities, sewer, water, and Mystic's no exception. I found this water tank, and I bought some from somebody, Micromark or whatever, and I was able to make Mystic, using their, excuse me, their, oh golly, paper that you can make, I'll be all right in a minute. Decals. And then I hand painted the senior 77 stuff on there, going from the Vandals, from the class of 77 Vandals. Yeah. I scratch built this building I had some parts, so I was able to make it. And this is a pretty cool scene here. The one with the guys are working in the open manhole. So I was able to do that as well. I scratch built this. The pipes all came from Walthers, and these are just styrene deals. That, I think, also was a chain link Walthers deal. But it really, really generates a pretty cool little model. It's very small, realistically, but I had a little space to put it in there. So, and all of them need a waterworks. Okay, like I also say, all little towns had a 24-hour diner. And this one is situated pretty handily. It's kind of right with the railroad tracks on one side and the bus station on the other side, open 24/7. And this is another one of those suey dam or side dam, however you want to say it. And it just is a box of sticks, except you did get these two metal castings here and there, I think. And then other than that, this is paper. And that's just wood and a piece of styrene, or not styrene, clear acetate. It makes a beautiful model. So I really like it. This is the same, the foundation is the same combination of styrene and plexiglass. I had to build, I've had this for 100 years, but since I really do like Campbell's kits, I had to go ahead and build a Campbell's Supply Company. I couldn't rail serve it, so that the way they get theirs is it's through the team track, and then they bring it on a truck and unload it into their box. So that was a user of my team track.
Could you build like a narrow gauge system to transfer all that to Campbell's?
I probably could, but it would be tricky. You'll have to come see, because I can't do an overhead the whole thing. One of my best friends is a double E. I'm a civil engineer, he's an electrical engineer. So I know that we needed power poles and electrical conduit. I said that if I don't do this 100% the way it would have done in 77, he's going to give me grief. So I studied, I checked it all out, and then he did. He said, "Hey, that's pretty close." He wasn't going to say it was right. That's close. Thanks, Rob. Thank you very much. Anyway, so there's two big circuits through town, and this is in the downtown middle to serve all of the local, but I had to be very careful to detail that correctly, or I'd get in deep trouble. All right, I think that's it. Yeah, all right, last slide, second to last slide. All right, this whole thing took place, this is 2 feet, 8 feet, this is about 4 feet, 1 foot, and 12 inches. So I guarantee you can do detail after detail after detail on an end scale in about the same space or less. So it doesn't take a huge railroad to put details in. It's just a matter of wanting to do it. So, happy railroading. And you can do it, man. I guarantee you, if you're interested, you can crank on through it. So that's it.
I do have a question. How do you keep the layout so clean? How do you clean it now that you've got all those details and textures?
Oh, man.
Like, how do you keep it clean?
The big filters on the air conditioner.
So prevention.
Yeah, and then what happened, we got, and then the only thing you really worry about much is the track. You know, because it gets stuff on it, and you gotta kind of clean it. I just use a piece of cloth usually, because I don't want to, and then in the back, I have one of these, like we have out here, you roll it along, and it kind of scratches the,
Dry cleaner?
yeah. Yeah, but mostly I don't worry about it. I mean, it goes. But mine is more of an operating railroad, and so I didn't want to mess with the deal. And it uses those cassettes that's San Antonio. And the way it works is a train, 9 cars is all I can handle because that's the length of the main track in Kerrville. It's 9 cars and an engine and a caboose. So my max length is 9, so all my trains are 9 cars. They come from San Antonio to Kerrville. Then they break it up into 2 turns. One goes to Valverde and one goes to Mystic. The Valverde one goes and takes whatever it's going to take to the 2 industries there, the team track and the fuel terminal. And then most of them are the hoppers for the the quarry deal. So that goes back and forth. And then the Mystic one, you have more things to do there. You got the freight station, you got the brewery, you got, so you have more, it's more shipping. Then during that time, I have a passenger train. I know, but it's a passenger train that runs from San Antonio to Kerrville, stopping at all these little places, turns around and goes back, and then you finish it up, and in the afternoon, you take the train back. So it's a one-day operation. And I've written some articles about it. One time I did a deal where they had a terrible rainstorm, and it washed out one of the tracks, so they had to have a maintenance crew come in and fix it. So they couldn't run the passenger train, so they had to take a bus for that. And it's an article about, okay, and this could really happen to the railroad. You have to have a plan of what to do, because the train was already in Kerrville. When the guy, some rancher noticed that, hey, you got issues, you got rocks all over the so anyway. So you can make up your own stuff as you go. All right.
Wait, are there any steam engines on your layout?
No.
Okay, just as curiosity.
Well, mine is late 1970s. They were gone for 20 years, damn near by the time I...
We scrapped all of them in the 60s.
Yeah. Yeah, they were legendary in them.
Yeah, they were elemental. And most of them could achieve higher speeds and greater strength than any diesel could.
Well, I'm not arguing with you.
Well, at least there's some still around. But that was a great presentation. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, that layout